So this is just like a single white female meets Pornhub.com meets slasher movies.
Meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2024, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Welcome to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we attempt to build a film franchise based on Universal's failed Dark Universe cinematic universe, one pitch at a time. I am Evil X-host number 1, Dalton DeShane.
I'm Evil X-host number 2, Dylan Roth.
And together, usually we're like reading what the intro, the thing of the podcast already. Well, maybe not. Maybe you have tuned in because you're a fan of Low Culture Boil and you are here to listen to our guests. But on our usual episodes, we have been pitching films to build a Marvel Universe-sized cinematic universe based on the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. And when we're not doing that, we are inviting other luminaries in the creative fields onto the show to pitch their own remakes of classic films to fit into our dark universe. And we have a real treat today because this is easily the most recent film we've ever heard pitched on here, I believe.
Well, we do talk about the 2017 Mummy movie, which is technically newer than this.
That's not a reboot. That's canon to our franchise.
That's true. That we inherited that movie. It is our Iron Man.
I mean, this one wasn't released in America until 2021, right?
Oh, no, I saw this in theaters.
It got re-released, I think, in 2021.
I think that's right. Yeah, they did like an anniversary thing.
Yes,
or
I was one of the 10 people who went to go see this in 2011 when it came out. And my life was changed forever.
I'm sure you also saw it in 2021.
No, actually, I did not get out to see it. I had a new baby, I think, when that happened. No, it was before the baby. It was before the...
You don't know when your baby
2021
was born.
is before my baby was born by
I have a new baby.
Woo! Amber has a new baby.
I have a new baby right now.
Oh,
that's
congratulations.
why I have high contrast pictures on my wall. That's not my regular art. That's for the baby.
Congratulations. And yet
you.
you still watched Scott Pilgrim and Dylan could not. So
hey, no,
shame.
Okay,
damn.
Now here's it's not that I could not watch Scott Pilgrim this week. I had no need to rewatch Scott Pilgrim for this because I have seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World probably 20 times. This is by far, by the way, as we have now introduced the concept, the movie that we're going to be talking about today is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Before you go on your fan rant about Scott Pilgrim, because I know
let's talk about our guests.
Introduce our guests. We've introduced the concept. We've introduced the movie. Let's introduce our guests. Rax is a James Beard Award-nominated writer that you know from her book Tacky, as well as her Patreon, where she posts extremely insightful and funny essays. And you know Amber as a comedian and writer, and perhaps most relevantly to this podcast, do you own a dog named Boris Karloff?
Yeah, I do. He's right there.
Hello,
hi,
Boris.
Yeah, hi, Boris. He's napping right now.
Yes.
But yeah, he came with the name Karloff. And he's a rescue, and he has these like big bushy eyebrows. And we were like, "Is that after Boris Karloff?" And they're like, "We don't know." And I'm like, "It is definitely after Boris Karloff."
Excellent.
So yeah, we call him Boris most of the time. But
I'm sure he loves a smoking jacket.
He does.
Yeah. And if you want to see those bushy eyebrows, Boris does have an Instagram account, of course.
Oh, yes.
And
Boris.
you know both of them from their podcast, Low Culture Boil, a celebration of trash culture. So please welcome to the Dark Universe, Rex King and Amber Rollo. Welcome, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for joining us here on Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? Perhaps the lowest culture thing that there is.
Amber and I actually haven't seen each other since like September. So this is such a treat for all your listeners. I hardly even need to make an effort today.
The reunion is happening here.
This is actually my first time podcasting since I had my baby.
Well, congratulations again.
We are honored. Yeah. Yes, congratulations.
5 months ago.
I have a 15-month-old now. So no, I did not have a baby in 2021 when this movie was coming out. That baby was not cooking yet.
Just a sparkle in your eye. Just a little.
We can
Were you married yet?
Yes.
Yes, you were married. Okay.
We can do parent chat after the show.
Hell yeah.
I do want to say I think it's very funny. I know you're about to go to tell us your Scott Pilgrim story. I think it's very funny. When Rax brought up the idea of Scott Pilgrim, you did not say whether or not you were a fan of this movie. And I have been preparing. There's a possible showdown here if you two hate this movie, that we have this movie's biggest fan in the world.
No, not biggest fan in the world. I
you.
think the biggest fan in the world probably would have made time to see it again in theaters in 2021.
True.
Dalton. But I do love this film.
I will say this was my first time seeing this film.
Okay.
And I think if I saw it in 2011, I would have felt differently about it than me seeing it right now in 2024.
That's probably fair.
The moment has passed.
Oh,
the
sure.
The moment has
for
passed. It's a
sure
very
passed.
2011 movie.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say though, like, it's an Edgar Wright movie from 2011,
Yes.
but it has the opposite thing of his movie Baby Driver, because in Baby Driver, basically every cast member of that movie has since been canceled. But the cast of this movie has only gotten like cooler with time, I think. Like
True.
there's
The fact that they reunited this whole crew for the animated series was like a big deal. It's like, oh no, they all blew up in the time since that movie came out.
Marvel people in there now, and they're still coming back. And
imagine having Aubrey Plaza for like a pretty small role in something
True.
in 2011.
But yes, tell us about your Scott Pilgrim story, Dylan.
I was just extremely intensely excited for this movie, and I ended up seeing it in theaters twice. The second time with a friend who hated it so much that she walked out about 30 minutes in, and then we basically didn't speak for a decade.
Oh, geez.
Oh my God.
I don't think
So
that's
that's what's
until
at stake, you
I
two.
don't know
Came
if
out.
that's really why. I think we were in the process of drifting apart for a bit. We're actually friends again now, but we've never
good.
talked about the Scott Pilgrim situation because who wants to reignite that potential argument?
But if you two really do hate this movie, Dylan will walk out and not speak to you for the next decade.
That's
Oh
true.
my
Our
God.
long storied friendship
Careful,
that goes
Amber.
back far past the last 7.5 minutes.
Do you
is
promise?
It's in real
I'm
jeopardy.
That's that. Yeah. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Well, I will say that in 2011, I had pink hair and I had just gotten my septum pierced for the first time. So yeah, I would have loved 2011. Amber would have been a huge fan of this movie. No, especially with the way it developed, like the way it turned out in the end. 2011 Amber would have also maybe been furious in the first 30 minutes and maybe walked out of the theater.
Yeah. Scott's not a great dude. I also acknowledge that there's a lot of baggage with this movie now, especially with women who have been told many times by just the lamest guys ever that you're just like Ramona Flowers. You remind me so
right
much
here,
of Ramona
champ.
Flowers.
Oh yeah.
Right
Yes.
here.
Yes. I did it. I saw this. Rax told me what film we were going to watch and I wasn't even familiar with it. I'm sorry, but I looked it up and started looking at pictures from the film, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like a manic pixie dream girl." But no, it's a depressive pixie dream girl. Oh yeah, know this type.
Yes.
Yeah. I did think Amber, because I texted Amber, if you want to do this podcast, this is the movie that we're watching and blah, blah, blah. And she responded, "Oh, cool. I've never seen it." And I did think, Amber, about warning you about exactly how profoundly 2011 of a scheme I was asking you to participate in. And then I thought, she'll figure it out. She's
It's a
smart
surprise.
cookie.
This and Eternal Sunshine, right, are sort of the two
Yes.
manic pixie sort of templates for dudes to reference. So with that being said, Rax, what did make you pick Scott Pilgrim versus? Because I reached out to you, I said like, oh, we usually do like a thriller or a horror movie, maybe Universal, maybe not. We can work with it. And you right away were like, can we do Scott Pilgrim versus the World? So I would like to hear about that.
My reasoning.
Yes.
Well, you said mostly Universal movies, and so I'm not too cowardly to admit that I went on the Wikipedia page for all Universal movies released ever, basically. First of all, I am not convinced that all of the movies listed on that page exist, because there are like 7,000 of them.
Yeah.
And half of them have titles like, The Decider. And I'm like, that didn't get made. Like, no, you You can't tell me that's a real movie. But I knew as I was scrolling that Scott Pilgrim versus the World was a real movie because I remembered seeing it about 70 times. Like you, Dylan, I don't even know that I would call myself like a current fan of this movie. Like if I, like Amber, hadn't seen it until this year, I don't think I would have liked it. But I did see it in 2011 or 2012, whatever. And I fell big time in love with it because I was already kind of like a Ramona Flowers, but with no style. And I was like, oh, there's a way out of this disgusting pit that I have dug for myself. So that's it's like half nostalgia, half it was the first movie on the list of all Universal movies ever made that really grabbed me.
It was really, Rax got tired of scrolling.
I did. Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I got tired of scrolling like in 2011. I did not scroll any farther back.
Yeah. Well, I think you said you wanted to pitch it as a sort of, and we'll get to your pitch after the break as always, but as sort of a bloodbath horror.
Hi.
Hello, baby break, baby break.
Oh my God.
Look at this little tater tot. Oh my God.
I love the sack of potatoes period is what my wife and I are most nostalgic for. Like our kid is wonderful, and he's now starting to reach the toddler phase where the personality that we're used to is changing into something much uglier. But but he's such a delight. But we think sometimes, wasn't it great when he was just like a little bag of potatoes and we could just kind of carry him around?
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything to say for himself and not a single opinion. Or couldn't really injure himself that easily.
I'm pretty sure my child was born with a lot of stupid opinions. That's just an inheritance.
I told my friend that my favorite thing is her big, fat cheeks.
Oh, it's all about the Chombley cheeks.
Yeah. And my friend was like, well, I guess that's fine, but my favorite thing is her personality.
I guess I'll just go fuck myself.
Yeah.
She's a baby. She doesn't have a personality.
No, it's all in beta. No, Jenna and I.
Personality is cheeks. That's what a baby does.
And that's the best kind to have.
Yes, exactly.
But we can do more. We can do more fawning in a bit.
You said you wanted to pitch it as like a bloodbath horror movie. And I'm
also a hardcore pornography movie. If
wow.
the good gentlemen of Universal Studios are amenable to that, but we'll get to that later.
Lesbians, yes. Says no.
Well, we've always wondered which of the two of us would do the first straight up pornographic pitch on the show. And so it looks like, combo breaker here, if we, or tiebreaker, or words not working. The coin has landed on its side, and a third person will be the one to introduce porn to our universe.
And I'm so glad is here for this pitch.
Babies love pornography.
And hardcore violence.
How do you think she was made? Okay.
True.
By watching porn.
I think it's very appropriate because clearly the powers that be at Universal and behind Scott Pilgrim have been wanting to reinvent the series, because we did just get the Netflix series last fall, which reunited the cast. But, and I don't want to spoil anything because it's pretty recent, but that series kind of twists the original movie. It kind of starts out the same, but the end of episode 1 has a big twist that takes it off in a new direction. So there's precedent for this. And I think it makes sense since it's such a popular property. The Dark Universe at this point in the franchise is a huge hit.
Yeah,
I mean,
we've raked in billions from
the
17 movies we've now pitched.
Yeah, and so they want to bring in these established characters, and I'm sure the creator wants to do a new take on it. And what better new take than pornographic, gory? So I think it makes sense. Before we get into Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I want to talk about your relation to horror movies, if you have any relationship to the Universal monsters besides a dog named Boris Karloff. I was listening to the Low Culture Boil episode about the Goosebumps series, and I was delighted to hear you both say that you have always wanted to write a horror something, whether a book or a movie or something, and wow, and then we drop out of the heavens to give you this opportunity,
and a fat check of imaginary dollars.
Yes. So how do you guys feel about horror movies? How do you feel about monster movies? What's your relationship?
I love horror movies.
Yeah.
I love monster movies. I love gore. gore is my favorite type of movie. Just, I like to imagine what it's like on set. I love squibs. The more blood, the better. The more real, the better. The more, you can imagine like I would love to be an extra in like a zombie movie and get to pretend eat other human beings. Just because I think that'd be really fun. And my relationship to horror, I don't know. I think horror and comedy are very similar because they're just about surprising you in different ways. One is about surprise scare, one is about surprise laugh. So yeah, I think they're both considered very lowbrow. But I think that means you can have more fun with it.
And I don't know about you, but with me, I get so mad whenever I see CGI blood in something.
Oh, yeah.
Squibs have existed for so long.
And
if it ain't broke.
Yeah, there's no excuse.
Yeah. It's not that hard to do. You can use like a freaking pump that you use to spray your yard for gnats or whatever. It's like, it's not, you don't need to use explosives or anything dangerous. You can just use air to make a squib.
I saw a one-woman musical in a basement in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago that had blood effects all the way through it. If they can do it, your indie horror movie can do it,
Exactly. Yes.
What show was this?
It was my partner Sarah wrote a musical based on called Faustine, based on the Faust story. That was a one-woman horror musical.
Hell yes.
With actual blood effects.
That's so fucking weird. I love that.
It rocked. Rax, what about you?
Yeah, horror movies. To your point, Amber, tell you what I like is when you watch like a real gory, bloody horror movie and then there's like a blooper reel and everyone's goofing around and everybody's buddies, like the serial killer guy is best friends with all the victims. Yeah. Love that shit. That shit. I'm not generally a huge gore person though. When I'm watching horror movies, I've always like the first one I ever saw, I think was The Ring. And there's that 1 second shot in The Ring where they showed just
the head barely out, right?
land that camera on the dead girl who's all fucked up looking.
Oh,
that ruined my life.
Yeah.
I watched the rest of that shit through my fingers over my face.
I sat on my sister's lap in that movie. That movie terrified me. I was like, I was in the theater and like in my older sister's lap because I was like, oh my God, no.
That movie traumatized a whole generation of slumber party goers.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely a big sleepover rental.
I rented it for my birthday even. And then I was the one who kept having to like walk out of the room. It was very embarrassing, very awful situation that I put my own self in. But I was like the only person in my family who liked horror movies. Like I don't have any siblings and both my parents are just completely anti-horror movies. So I kind of had to like figure out my taste on my own. Like there was no, I feel like sometimes, a parent will like introduce you to the classics of some genre. There was none of that. My dad was so scared watching Psycho in the theater that he broke his girlfriend's hand from holding it too hard.
That's insane.
So there was just none of that shit in my house. And I don't know, I feel like I developed very random taste in horror movies. As we're recording this now, I like paused watching Midsummer again.
Wow,
and that's one of my favorites.
It's an intense one. But that story about the hand breaking, that feels like something that should have been in the newspaper. Like that's the kind of thing that like they should have used for marketing, right? When they're like, The Exorcist is making people pass out. Like he should have called the paper and said, hey, guess what happened?
Psycho is making guys break fingers. Obviously it wasn't the whole hand that just got like shattered. There was a bone that
but
was
they could embellish it in the press.
Yeah, sure.
A picture of like the cast,
The cast of Psycho.
Absolutely.
That period of like when The Ring came out in like 2003, there were so many like dirt cheap PG-13 horror movies out there that were just like the sleepover fare. One of my first horror movies, I think the first one I ever saw in theaters was a movie called Darkness Falls. Does anyone remember Darkness Falls?
No.
I feel like
No.
it came out in 2003, 2004. It's about a killer tooth fairy. It is no joke about how like the tooth fairy is actually like some ancient witch. And if you see the tooth fairy, she will kill you. Like she will not stop until you die because she can't be seen.
Oh my God.
It's awful. And I bought it on DVD and I watched it so many times because again, I didn't know what was good.
It's so weird that they cast Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the Tooth Fairy in that movie.
Yes, yeah. Very strange casting. And marketed as a family film.
Yeah.
Was it really?
No, there's
a
another
different
movie called The
Tooth
Tooth
Fairy.
Fairy
that
starring
was
Dwayne
the-
"The Rock" Johnson from around
I'm
the same
sitting
time
here
period.
Like, that's the worst movie I've ever heard of.
But let's talk Scott Pilgrim. Rax, since this was your pick, why don't you tee it up for us? Tell us the premise. Explain to our listeners who haven't seen it what the deal is with Scott Pilgrim.
And when explaining
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim's deal, please feel free to be as mean as you want to Scott Pilgrim.
I feel like he's just such a sad sack. I don't know how mean I even want to be. He's a dumb
bummer,
piece of
yeah.
shit. Yeah, he's just a grim waste of space.
But he's corny.
Yeah.
He's corny.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This guy, Scott Pilgrim, played by Michael Cera, who's, what is he, like 22 when the movie starts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 22.
Some dick age where like anytime I meet a guy who's 22, I just move right on with my life. Like I'm not
The
going to
worst.
waste any time talking to your ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's 22. He is quote unquote dating a 17-year-old girl who's still in high school, and all of his friends are like, this is disgusting. And he's like, well, we're not doing anything physical, which appears to be true. But so he's like, so it's fine. And he's doing this. It is heavily implied because he's all fucked up from a breakup with this woman who's become a pop star.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Scott Pilgrim meets this other girl, Ramona Flowers, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and falls just crazy in love with her. He acts like a dick to like all three women in the mix. And Ramona has, it turns out, 7 evil exes who Scott Pilgrim, if he wants to keep dating her, has to fight and defeat all 7. And most of the movie is just him having little video game fights with exes of various types.
A very structured movie, moving from one X to the next. Dylan, give us a little bit of the publication history.
So Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is a Edgar Wright film based on a Bryan Lee O'Malley series of graphic novels.
Did you read the graphic novels?
I had,
I did.
I own, Rax has.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really remember them all that well, but I devoured them after I saw the movie.
Oh, it was after the movie. You were like, I have to go check these out.
That's where I
Yeah.
was also. I had not read them ahead of time. I just saw that completely gonzo trailer, which used the now then tired, frankly, slogan, it's on like Donkey Kong. But now,
Ooh.
if I hear that, I would immediately turn off the whatever it is I'm watching. But it looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I think it really was like nothing that anybody had seen before. Even Edgar Wright
at the
fans.
time,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's still my favorite Edgar Wright movie, I think, because I think that it's the only one that's not a complete original property from him. And in this case, I think that he was able to, I'm not going to say elevate the material in a way that derives the material. I think the material is really interesting. But I feel like the chemistry between Edgar Wright as a filmmaker and Bryan Lee O'Malley as a writer became
perfect match.
I think it's greater than the sum of either part.
I forgot to mention that the other reason why a horror version of this worked so well is because Edgar Wright is such a horror fan.
He loves horror.
Yeah.
I'm talking about gore.
Yes,
Yeah, he's great
absolutely.
at gore.
Absolutely.
Is he a
So
gore baby? I don't really know anything about him other than this movie, I don't think.
Well,
Yeah.
his big breakout features. First feature was Shaun of the Dead, which is the low budget zombie comedy,
Hot Fuzz.
and then Hot Fuzz,
Hot Fuzz,
very
sure.
gory.
maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even think that as being that gory, but yeah,
he also
extremely.
did in the Grindhouse movies, he did the trailer for Don't, which was like
that was my favorite one.
yes. So Edgar Wright did Don't in which is so pitch perfect, like parody of like Giallo film, or like not Giallo, but like those kind of like 70s European horror films. He did that recent one with Thomas and Mackenzie, the last Last Night in Soho?
Last Night in Soho, which I did not care for.
Yeah, but he loves horror, and so he would be thrilled to executive produce, I'm sure, a horror version of Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, we would get no pushback from Edgar Wright. We would maybe even have to shoo him away to make room for whichever director you choose for the project.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's I always say that the best video game movies are not based on video games. This is one of those. Like a movie like this, Edge of Tomorrow, while it has nothing to do with video games, is the perfect video game movie. The John Wick movies are video game movies, I think, in a lot of respects. But this is the one that embraces the aesthetic, because within the text of this world, video game rules apply. And when you defeat somebody in combat, they explode into a number of gold coins equivalent to the value assigned to them by the universe. And
yeah, I always thought that was one of the funniest jokes in the movie, is when he defeats the first guy, and because he's like an easy boss, he only explodes into like $1. And after he's
it's not
collected
enough for
all
bus
the coins,
home,
he's like, it's not even enough for the bus ride home.
There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of really fun stuff going on in this movie. I think, even though obviously comic book movies in general are now such a huge thing, like this gets sort of the framing and the punctuation and the rhythm of comics a lot better than most movies do. It's also a movie that's really easy to be annoying about, which has unfortunately, I think, turned into a bit of an albatross around its neck in the years since. Again, see the "you're just like Ramona Flowers" kind of thing. Which, by the way, do dudes know when they're saying that they are communicating that they want a top, that they want because Ramona Flowers is the top in that situation. She says that Scott Pilgrim has a subspace in his head. It is not subtle.
Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, by and large, men do not understand this movie. Like, obviously, like, individual guys are about this movie, but I just, like, anytime I've had a conversation with some guy about this movie, I walk away from that conversation like, I don't know that we saw the same movie, dude. Like,
it's in that 500 Days of Summer space, right? Where if you identify too closely with the male protagonist, you will miss the movie. You just won't. No matter how much they telegraph it to you, it'll be like, yeah, this guy rocks. Like, no, this is the villain of the film, and you're supposed to learn the lesson. And like, at least in 500 Days of Summer, you have the excuse that the character doesn't learn the lesson. In Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Scott does learn about himself and does learn that he's the asshole.
It's not even so much that Scott Pilgrim is evil, but if you're looking at this movie and saying, man, I wish I was Scott Pilgrim, you gotta set the bar higher, champ. Like,
the first time I saw it was, about when it came out, but not in theaters. Like, I was at the house of this dude, this stand-up comedian piece of shit guy that I was hooking up with.
No.
And he was like, we're going to watch a movie. And I'm like, okay, like, just anything to get through this night. And, but I ended up really loving the movie. But the guy himself was like about 22, maybe a couple years older, and just like clearly was not ready to learn the lessons that 22-year-old men need to learn.
That is also the age that I was when this film came out. I was 22, and I don't know that I can say the first time I watched it, I completely understood the way that I was being critiqued. I was also freshly a bass player, I think. I just started playing the bass.
Oh, no.
Yes.
That'll fuck up a person. Yeah, that'll fuck up your spirit.
And I think I was only dabbling at that point. I didn't actually join a band as a bassist for another 3 years after that. But
at that point, you have to identify Scott almost as a defense mechanism.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like, so the text, the not subtext, the text of the film that is that's so critical to those of you who have not seen it, is that Scott really walks through the world like he thinks he's the player character, and everything is about his emotional needs, and his support system are all a supporting cast, and they're there to play the role he needs them to. His quirky gay roommate, who he's in fact imposing on, and he's living in his apartment really without his permission at all. His
Kieran Culkin again. This cast has aged incredibly.
So good in this. He falls for this. He falls for what he imagines as his dream girl. And in fairness, she does literally travel through his dreams because it's a subspace highway through there. So
emphasis on subspace.
Okay. go rock out.
Just saying.
I don't disagree. I've just never thought about it that way before.
I didn't think about it when I watched it.
I thought about it.
I didn't think about it until you just said it, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, he's shitty to everybody in his life in a way where he still thinks he's just a sweet little small bean and none of it's his fault. Over the course of these 7 confrontations, well, I guess 6 because 2 of them were twins, with the various different people, is like, okay, some of them also suck, and they're also here to be critiqued for the most part, as is Ramona, which is a really cool thing about the Netflix series. It sort of does the same thing for Scott Pilgrim the same thing for Ramona that the movie and the book do for Scott. But he kind of starts to understand the way that he is treating everybody and makes some decisions that seem to indicate that things are going to turn around, and then it gets a little undercut at the end of the movie. But don't be Scott Pilgrim. Don't be like Scott Pilgrim.
I mean, if you're 22, I guess it's fine, but you got to grow up.
Why does Ramona just let her exes fight this guy that she's possibly interested in?
The logic of it's a little fuzzy.
She only fights back when it's the girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's the only person where she involves herself in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, she just lets it all happen.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of bi erasure there with the girlfriend thing. It was just written off as like an experiment.
Even then, I remember a lot of think pieces being like, yo, this is fucked up. And like, they were absolutely right. It is pretty fucked up that she dies of coming to death.
Yeah. It's interesting that the Netflix series, how much the Netflix series kind of tries to address all the criticisms about the movie.
Yeah, and makes it part of the text.
It basically is like, hey, Ramona, you actually kind of were shitty to this girl by writing off your thing as just like an experiment. And
without getting too much into spoilers for the show, part of the sort of point of the show is to look back at yourself or your work 20 years later and see all the ways that you've changed and hopefully changed for the better since you did it. So Bryan Lee O'Malley, who also co-wrote with Ben David Grabinski the whole series, is also critiquing himself as a storyteller, looking back at the ways that he feels he failed the first time he told the story. So there's a lot going on. I think it's like with every iteration of the story, you get new and interesting stuff. But there is also the thing with Scott Pilgrim versus the World where the final novel was still being written when the movie went into production, and then they changed the ending of the movie to match the ending of the book, even though they hadn't really done the setup for it, and it doesn't fully work.
Something that people really like about the movie is that it's like transmedia. Is that what they call it? Where like media that engages with other types of like, so the book, the reason, so that the way that they changed the end as they were making the movie, because of the book being written, it is like talking to other versions of media.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what the next series is doing too. That's cool.
The Netflix one definitely takes that to another level by like, even inside that, they're making the movie of Scott Pilgrim versus the World in sort of a meta way, but in a way that, sort of is in communication with the original movie and with the original graphic novel. It makes it interesting.
And for a story that in itself from the source text is about recognizing flaws and trying to evaluate and remold yourself, it's really interesting that in our endless cycle of reinterpreting the same works over and over again because they're profitable, something of value can come from it. And I have not rewatched Scott Pilgrim versus the World in a while, even because it's just all in here and I don't need to. I just close my eyes and it plays whether I want it to or not. I am interested in going back at some point because, like, I did not rewatch for this. The last version of Dylan to see this was 26-year-old Dylan, and I'm almost 35-year-old Dylan now. The last time I believe I watched this movie was when I watched it with my then new girlfriend, now wife, as we were desperately trying to find any media that we both liked, and we had a Scott Pilgrim versus the World poster hanging up in the living room of the apartment, which actually belonged to the drummer, to Julian, the voice of Larry on our show, and the drummer in No Jersey. We were living together, and this was his poster. He was also a huge fan. It was an influence on one of the bands that we were in, and Jenna and I had struck out a couple times for the things that we each wanted to watch, and she was just like, "Fuck, the poster is in the room and everything." I really hope I like this one. And that broke the seal. That broke the seal. She did like it.
You were both wrestling fans. You had wrestling to watch
We
together.
both like wrestling. That's true.
Yeah,
That's
there's like 17,000 hours of wrestling every week. No, I feel like that'll tide you over.
yes. And we were watching about 9 of it together. Yes. But in terms of movies, I think movies, because we also like the same music. We met online because we both put references to the Gaslight Anthem and pro wrestler Bray Wyatt in our profiles.
Aww.
That's how we know each other. And Bray Wyatt died last year, and it was very sad for us.
The cast of this movie is insane.
Yes, thank you for getting us back on track, Dalton.
Separate from, before we go down I'm sure actually a lot of our fans do want to, they love when they find out lore about us.
Yes,
so
but also
there's some Dylan
around the time
lore.
this episode comes out on our Patreon, Dylan and Dalton, the Dylan and Dalton Patreon, there will be an episode where we talk about wrestling for an hour and a half.
So
it's all, this is all a big promotional tie-in. If you
has
think
Low
I'm being
Culture
sincere,
Boyle
it's
done a
all
wrestling
about
episode?
money.
Yeah, I think it was before you joined us, Amber.
Yeah,
it was
it
one
was
of our
before.
first ones. Yeah, me and Courtney did an episode with the guys from the podcast Street Fight.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, it was super fun. But God, now that I think about it, like Courtney left the podcast, Jake left the podcast, Street Fight disbanded.
Yeah.
It's such a relic.
Well, it sounds like it's
It
time
is
for an
such a relic.
updated wrestling episode.
I mean, I used to love wrestling. Like as a little girl, I don't think I ever grew out of it so much as like I stopped paying attention for about a year, and then I didn't know who anybody was anymore, and I just couldn't get back on track.
Mhm.
But I love me some wrestling
Well,
for sure.
Well, here's a way we can use that as an on-ramp back on here, because this is
Oh,
a
okay.
movie where they do a lot of really good storytelling through action, not just through the physical action of fighting, but through camera move. Like
Yeah.
Edgar Wright is so great at doing comedy with the camera in a way that in the years since his heyday have really fallen off. And it was kind of competing directly with the Judd Apatow model of, hey, we've got a script that we're happy with, but we also are going to put a bunch of people who are really funny in a room and have them riff. We just have the camera here. So we can't have the camera do jokes because then we're going to lose whatever they're riffing on.
Yeah, this is very carefully storyboarded, very carefully mapped out. It's a very dynamic movie. Like I was saying, the cast is great. I think, you've got Chris Evans, Brie Larson, Allison Pill, Aubrey Plaza, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michael Cera, Kieran Culkin,
Jason Schwartzman.
Jason Schwartzman. It's really pretty star-studded. And
the voice of Bill Hader.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is Bill Hader there at the end.
is it really?
He's the narrator, yeah.
Who's the voice of Bill Hader? Where is he?
He does the
He's-
Scott has learned the power of love at the end of
He's
it.
the narrator.
Oh, wait, no, it might be
Why
Will Forte.
the fuck
It
is he
might be
Bill
Will
Hader?
Forte. I'm sorry. It's Bill
No,
Hader?
it's Bill Hader.
Okay, because Will Forte does a
in the
voice in
anime.
something else
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
Will Forte is in
He's
this?
in
No,
the
he's in the
anime.
animated series.
He's in the anime, but yeah.
But Bill Hader
Because
does
I've seen
the
this
video game.
movie a lot of times, and I have never even stopped to consider that Bill Hader might have been involved in it in any way.
It's Bill Hader doing a voice, so and you don't see him. The last thing we really should get to the pitch. We've been rambling and going on and off topic, but the last thing that I just want to mention, because I put it in my notes, a lot of this movie, as we said, feels very 2011, but I think nothing about this movie feels more 2011 than the fact that there is a My Super Ex-Girlfriend joke in it. There is a reference to the Uma Thurman comedy, My Super Ex-Girlfriend, a movie that I don't think anyone remembers anymore.
I saw
I didn't see it.
I saw it in the theaters on a date, and I went on very few dates, so it's very precious to me in that way.
Okay. Well,
You were going to the movies a lot that year.
so actually, maybe this movie knew its target audience perfectly. They said, "Oh,
People who went on like 2 dates in high school. One of them was to see my super ex-girlfriend.
yeah." So never mind. It's not dated. It was just laser targeted at Dylan, and it hit its mark. So, good job, everyone involved. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we are going to hear Rax and Amber's pitch for the Dark Universe version of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And yeah, we can't wait to hear this. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In 2006, DC Comics attempted a publishing stunt like nothing comics had ever seen before.
1 year-long continuous story
For 52 weekly issues.
by a writer's room of the hottest comic writers in the industry.
What they created was the most important comic book series of the 21st century. I'm Gita Jackson.
And I'm professional comic book expert Alex Jaffe.
And we're the hosts of 52 Pickup, a deep dive into 52, the comic book that took the conventions of television writing to comics and defined the way we think about superhero universes today.
We'll show you just how big the DC universe can be when you get Batman out of the way.
And the chain of dominoes that led to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing Black Adam in a major Hollywood movie.
Find 52 Pickup wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll go issue by issue into this starting point to our comic book obsessions and figure out why our brains are broken this way.
It's the greatest podcast you've never heard of.
Are you ready?
Welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? We are here with guests Rax King and Amber Rollo, and we are about to hear their pitch for a horror version of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I almost said Dark Universe versus the World. That's not right. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, although I don't know what you're going to title it. Maybe you'll change the title. So, what have you guys been thinking?
Check this out.
I'm so ready.
It's not called Scott Pilgrim versus the World anymore because it's the gritty reboot, and so you have to have like a single word. Mm-hmm. Pilgrim.
Okay. Just
starring
Pilgrim.
Dave Bautista and not Michael Cera.
Okay.
And I think we got it. I think that's
I think what I really like about your pitch is not Michael Cera.
Yeah. I know there is no reason whatsoever for me to have a problem with him. I don't know why I do. He seems so nice.
Seems really sweet, but I don't know. He just reminds me too much of like exactly the Scott Pilgrim character. Like he's too cast.
Yeah, he's too well cast.
He has also become, I think, very time-stamped. Like he was so active in a certain period of time that it does kind of feel like Michael Cera kind of just feels like the mid-2000s. In a way that like maybe just putting him as, although maybe that's, what he needs in his career right now is a gritty reboot, but maybe not of a character he's already done.
He can be not Matthew Patel. They would have to change his name. It would be very racist for Michael Cera to play someone named Matthew Patel.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
But he could play Gideon Graves, though, would be kind of interesting.
I think maybe just a cameo. I think we keep him to a cameo, not like a key role.
He could do the voice that apparently fucking Bill Hader does without my permission.
Perfect.
We could have him do like the narration, kind of thing.
So key part, though, of this pitch, aside from the fact that, again, Dave Bautista plays 22-year-old sad sack Scott Pilgrim. Hardcore blood and guts, A. B, full penetration. Whole way through.
Okay.
Like that movie that Dennis Reynolds pitches on Always Sunny? I don't think he went far enough. I feel like there wasn't enough full penetration.
Yeah, we're going to have Goatsy as one of the exes. One of the evil exes is Goatsy. You get sucked into him. That's
the worst thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you said that with a baby in your arm.
Yeah, I do need everyone at home to understand that this is happening with a baby on the Zoom screen right now.
Normal.
We have 3 guests with us today. Now, I do believe that I think, Rax, what you're asking for is for Dave Bautista to have graphic penetrative sex with a character who is a high schooler. Is that what you're saying that will be happening in this film?
I mean, probably, it is a plot point that he doesn't have sex with her.
Okay, so we're keeping knives platonic. Okay.
Yes,
we're
but
keeping
that's
probably
the 17-year-old
right. And Ramona Flowers could be
of hardcore pornography.
Will be an adult.
But one of the things that I do love most about horror films, especially gory horror films, is boobs. Like boobs are in horror films. It's one of the best things about them because it's considered lowbrow. You get to have boobs, and I think that we should, go all the way. Go all the way.
Yeah.
Well, I think
hardcore penetration. Everybody can see boobs anytime they want now.
Yeah.
So
it's true. I think that in addition, though, to because if I don't know if you have a clear picture of this, but this does kind of have the structure of a slasher movie, right? Kind of built into it, because you've got these sort of 7 victims potentially, or like, you've got that sort of same structure where a slasher movie, like you have your characters at the front and they're going to get moved through at a certain rate. And in a slasher movie, you've often got the woman who's running with her tits out, right? As she's being chased down. I think in this one, we also have the opportunity to have a guy running with his dick swinging.
Just dick to the breeze.
Yes, through the woods. And that makes it a little bit more equal.
Yeah.
In fact, if we're doing... let me not get ahead of myself. Do we have any clearer picture of the plot or an arc here? Or are we just launching off with Dave Bautista, Pilgrim?
I mean... As far as plot goes, I don't think you can do much better than a man running through the woods with his sack to the wind, just everything flailing around like it's one of those waving tube guys at the used car lot.
Oh, the wacky wavy inflatable tube man.
Yeah, I like to see like numerous scenes of genitals that are doing exactly that maneuver. Plot wise, I don't have any thoughts. I've storyboarded the genitalia.
Mm-hmm.
What if one of the exes was like, like you called him like Little Peter or something, and you meet the guy, and then the ex is actually the dick. Like you're first talking to the guy, and then he's like, no, actually, no, down here, and then you have to like fight the Little Peter,
and it's a teeny tiny penile situation.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
With googly eyes. I know this is not horror. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty
the relationship
horrific,
between horror and comedy.
Yeah, horror and comedy. I mean, it is Edgar Wright, so yeah.
Here's a plot that's coming to, because I think horror comedy works really well, especially because as an audience, if you hear there's a gritty horror remake of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I don't think modern audiences are going to take that entirely seriously. It is going to have to be somewhat of a wink to be pulled off. Here's the plot I had thought maybe you were going to pitch, and I think might be the way to go based on what you've said. I think this is almost like a Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer or a Maniac kind of thing, where we are following Pilgrim, Dave Bautista, who meets Ramona Flowers, but he is secretly a psychopath.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's killing all her exes.
Yes, he's going through the row because he's like, she is mine now. And I need to stake my claim by like, she'll bring up like a story of like, oh, well, there's this time that like me and Gideon did. And he's like, Gideon? Gideon who? And like in his mind, he's like freaking out because he's like, she has memories of someone that's not me. And then he goes, so it's not even like the exes are coming to Scott Pilgrim. Mm-mm. Scott Pilgrim is going to the exes and
down.
Unbeknownst to Ramona is chasing them naked through the woods, and like, but trying to act normal to her, right?
Yes.
And I think then at the end, where this will lead is Ramona will find out what's going on after, probably the fourth or fifth funeral, and we can even like play it like as like the comedy thing where she's like, why are all my exes dying of
murder?
Yes.
She warns him to be careful. She's like, oh my God, someone's going after my exes.
There's a serial killer on the loose, and he's only going after people I've slept with for some reason.
Yeah, and he can be like, I'll protect you because I'm Dave Bautista and I'm really big.
Yeah, sure. That seems like a good opportunity for a full penetration moment, actually, like after that line is said.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
real quick.
Well, and also he's going to definitely interrupt every one of these exes during sex with their new partners.
Yes, beautiful.
Right, like without exception.
Right. Yeah. And we have the opportunity to have a variety of sexual situations, the same way that all of the fights are different in the original.
Yeah.
We have, of course, we do have a pair of twins. That's a classic pornography trope.
Definitely.
We have, we have our bad boy, and we have our like businessman, business dom. I think pretty. And then we have, I think a lot of possibilities there.
He stabs one of them while they're stuck in the washing machine. Like crying out for their stepbrother.
I foresee a lot of opportunities for like folks to get stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
With their hand in the sink, with their yeah, that's classic.
Or something else in the sink. We can put something else down that garbage disposal.
Oh man, yeah, for gore,
murder down that garbage disposal.
I think there's an opportunity at some point if we want to incorporate sort of the concept of the League of X's, that after a couple of them get killed, then the remaining X's can perhaps team up.
Yeah.
And then we have maybe Ramona starts putting them together in this case, because we imagine Ramona is sort of our final girl here.
Yeah, I think that's like at the end he probably turns on her, right? Because it's never going to be enough for him. Yeah, and so he goes to kill her, and now she's our final girl who will turn the tables on him, right?
And she eventually will kill him by crushing his head with a giant hammer.
Yes, because she has a hammer. Yeah.
Hammer stays for sure. Definitely the hammer stays.
Now, I don't want to complicate things too much because I think this is a solid place that we're starting. But in the spirit of, we were talking earlier about how Scott Pilgrim is sort of a meta narrative, right? That's sort of engaging with other forms of media. The Netflix series engages with its past self version. Now I'm kind of getting maybe a Cabin of the Woods feeling from this, where we've got this sort of very basic slasher premise, but if it's just that on its own, it almost feels like the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey kind of thing, where you're taking.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. What?
Is that a Winnie the Pooh horror movie?
Okay, here we go.
So the new trend in zero budget horror is as soon as something beloved goes public domain, some moron with a Kickstarter makes a horror movie out of it.
Oh my God, has someone made a Mickey Mouse on the Steamboat? They've already made it.
Okay. There's going to be a Steamboat Willie horror movie.
But because it's so quick and so rushed, even though theoretically you have had 70 years to come up with a good screenplay for this, it's always the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, and even horror fans hate them. Like there is one called Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. They're making a second one. And I think it's not even really Winnie the Pooh. I think it's just a guy in a Winnie the Pooh mask, which is like, come on, think of something.
That's so low rent. I love it.
Yes.
Makes the asylum look like A24.
If you're going to do a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, I'm sorry, but it should be about a crazy psycho who only wears a red t-shirt and is dick out from the waist down.
I see a theme in your pitches.
You don't even know yet.
To be fair, Dalton pitched this particular dick out situation.
I don't know why I'm going dick out on all these things, but
in one of Dalton's very first pitches on the show, we have
this Invisible Man poster right back here. I pitched an Invisible Man movie with John C. Reilly where he has his dick out.
And it's the only part of him you can see for most of the movie that he appears in.
Yeah. But Winnie the Pooh, like, you've got a psychopath who, like, just always eats honey, and he's just walking around in just a t-shirt killing people. Yeah. I feel like, anyway.
Let's get back.
That's strong.
Let's get back to the gabagool.
Back to Scott Pilgrim. I'm feeling like if we just leave this as, okay, what if Scott Pilgrim killed people? It feels a little bit too much like the Winnie the Pooh thing. So what if we figure out a way to take this slasher structure, but make it a meta narrative with the original Scott Pilgrim in a way that elevates it, adds another layer beyond just Dave Bautista is Scott Pilgrim now. Dylan, does that resonate with you at all?
It does. And if nobody, I want to give our guests an opportunity to riff on this, but I have a thought if it comes to it.
Is anything jumping out at you both with this idea?
Wait, I want to hear Dylan's thought. Dylan has a thought. Anytime someone says, I have a thought, I got to know the thought immediately. I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
Okay.
Tell us the thought.
For the sake of your sanity, here's my
Thank you.
Here's my idea. I think that perhaps we can have this be the story of a guy who has read and internalized Scott Pilgrim versus the World and not understanding that Scott is the villain. And so he's trying to be cool like Scott Pilgrim and kill all of his new girlfriend's exes for her.
Yeah, it has like imprinted on his sociopathic brain.
Right, like a copycat crime.
Yes, that's my thinking.
Instead of a real crime, it's...
And the only person who can stop him is Bryan Lee O'Malley.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And then it turns into like a stranger than fiction situation where the author of the work either has the power to kill Dave Bautista in real life or... I don't know, write him some kind of salvation.
Yeah, I feel like maybe someone figures out maybe the girl does. She's like, he keeps calling me Ramona. Like, I thought it was just kind of nerdy and cute when the first time we met, he said I looked like Ramona Flowers.
That's so good. Rather than having her be Ramona Flowers, we do that fucking trope.
Yes, it's just the trope where he's like, you're just like Ramona Flowers. And
he just wants her to wear rollerblades all the time.
Right.
And it makes the idea that Bautista thinks he's Scott Pilgrim so much funnier because he's not remotely like Scott Pilgrim. But he thinks himself as being non-threatening when he's the most threatening looking man in the world.
Yeah, I just feel like the world is ready for a Scott Pilgrim with a really thick neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a thick and little glasses.
We have to give him little glasses.
Along that same idea, I did have an idea that we get. I'm sure that you've had people pitch you this idea before, so I'm sorry if I'm not the first. But have you seen the movie Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you know how they trap a bunch of people in a movie theater and burn them at one point? Yeah. Okay, so I think that we get all the guys who identify with Scott Pilgrim into a special showing. Into a special showing. And this is the movie itself. It's us taping them being pulled into the movie theater, and then we burn it. That's it. Maybe it's more of like a real idea than a movie.
I think Amber just wants to kill a whole movie theater's worth of guys who over-identify with Scott Pilgrim, and now she's trying to like plant that seed now.
Yeah. Yes,
I can't wait till the police listen to this podcast episode in a few weeks looking for clues.
And nothing that you can say. It's always parody, okay?
I can't wait until lines from this episode are read out loud in a court of law.
They have to get through all of the dick flapping before they get to this. Like, no, you're going to read it. You're going to read the entire text.
If we do that as a scene in the movie, as a meta joke, Dylan and I will be cast as people in the theater there to see Scott Pilgrim. Because we do love this movie.
Though. And then you get to be extras and be like, and deal with the melting gore kind of makeup. That would be really fun.
Okay, but on that level of the meta text, I think if we're doing this thing where, okay, so Dave Bautista has read Scott Pilgrim and is too obsessed with it, it's imprinted on him. This girl figures it out because she's like, he's calling me a Ramona, my exes are dying, but I don't want to say anything to him because he'll kill me. So she goes to either Bryan Lee O'Malley or Edgar Wright or something, and they're like, well, here's our strategy. To get him to realize that he's not Scott Pilgrim, we'll bring out Michael Cera, the actor. And once he sees Michael Cera, and Michael Cera will say, hi, I'm actually Scott Pilgrim, maybe that will fix his brain and he'll realize that he's not Scott Pilgrim because Michael Cera is here. And instead, Dave Bautista just kills Michael Cera.
Wears his skin.
Yeah. Oh, that would be yes. Actually, yes.
He puts his floppy hair on top of his bald head.
Yes. Dave Bautista kills Michael Cera and wears his face for the entire third act of this film.
Michael Cera's face isn't big enough to cover Dave Bautista's face.
That makes it even better.
Well, but Dave Bautista does have a small head. Everything is big about him except the head.
I think also Dave Bautista should grow the little mustache that Michael Cera grows in Youth and Revolt. I think he should have that for the entire film.
Yes.
Definitely. So this is just like a single white female meets Pornhub.com meets slasher movies.
Meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually like this. I like so Michael Cera dies. Let's pick up. Michael Cera has died and Dave Bautista is wearing his face.
Obviously. Hannibal Lecter style. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at this point is where he turns on Ramona, who's not really Ramona, but he's like, you tried to trick me with a fake Scott Pilgrim.
That was Michael Cera, you bitch.
Maybe you're not really Ramona. Maybe you tricked me into thinking you're Ramona, and Ramona's actually out there. And so that's when he turns on her, and now she's our final girl.
And she has to defeat him
with her
hammer.
With her hammer. And we got to come up with another meta twist here at the end.
Can this final fight take place at a Metric concert?
There we go. I was going to say at a screening of Scott Pilgrim.
Well, then we can combine the idea with Amber's pitch.
Band type situations going on in this film.
That's true.
Bautista should be in a terrible band.
Bautista should think he's in a terrible band.
Wait, what if the joke is the band's actually good?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the joke was that he's not in a band at all and he just keeps kind of coming on stage during other band sets and they're too afraid to get rid of him because he's like 9 feet tall.
And he wanders onto the stage at a Metric show and just starts playing bass for Metric.
Right. And they're like, how do we put a stop to this? I'm afraid. He's wearing somebody's face right now.
I think this is where our face-off situation happens.
Yeah,
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, yes. He is going. He's going for the big X kill at this Metric concert. He goes on stage, starts playing the bass. They're like, we gotta do something, and so Michael Cera comes out on stage at the Metric show. And is like, I'm Scott.
Hey, everybody, I'm Michael Cera.
He's got to be like, I'm Scott. I'm the real Scott Pilgrim. And that's when he kills him on stage and in front of thousands of screaming fans, cuts his face off.
And then they're just screaming.
And wears it.
Yeah.
And everyone leaves.
I wonder at what point everyone leaves. Like at what point in this surgical process do people say, okay, this show is not going to continue. I'm going to try and get a
part of the show at first. They're like, oh yeah, real metal. Hell yeah.
Yeah, maybe Metric is going in like a Gwar direction.
I think we also could consider including Beck Hansen because he wrote all the songs for Sex Bob-omb in the movie.
Yeah, that's true. We could kill Beck.
We could maybe kill Beck. I think it would also
Definitely
be funny if Brie Larson played Emily Haynes in the movie.
Oh yeah.
So
she has to.
So we don't actually have we have the rest of the members of Metric, but then Brie Larson playing Emily Haynes.
Yeah, and then and we kill the bassist from Metric, because of course the bassist is one of the evil X's in the film and in the show.
Or it could just be at random.
At
this point he's kind of on a roll.
That's true.
And then the whole thing ends Pee-wee's Big Adventure style on the set of the Dark Universe's Scott Pilgrim versus the World reboot.
Why not?
I thought you were going to be like, no, absolutely not.
No,
I was waiting for someone to tell me no.
There was going to be another murder that got pitched right there. And I'm like on the edge of my seat. Like, you're pitching me now.
Then the person viewing the film is killed in real life.
It's
like the video from The Ring. It's just like, once you watch this movie that we have pitched you die. That's just how it goes down.
We should, if we're integrating this into the Dark Universe, Tom Cruise should make an appearance in the third act. We should get a cameo from him as Tom Cruise, filming his part as the Mummy. All right, now I'm the only, someone's got to jump in here.
Listen, you're on a roll. We're just letting you go.
No, this is the most beautiful thing anyone could ever imagine. I mean, just the idea of Tom Cruise kind of stumbling onto the sets of random other movies, but not as Tom Cruise, just in his mummy outfit, like running lines from the Mummy or whatever, totally oblivious to the fact that he's in the wrong movie. Mm-hmm. I think that should happen in more movies, actually. Like, that should be a whole trend.
Now, okay, here, since nobody's telling me no, which is dangerous.
I'm telling you yes.
Which is dangerous. Here's the other idea that just came into my head. A couple months ago, we had Branson Reese on the show. And Branson Reese pitched us his version of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, but his starred Larry David and Pete Davidson.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And part of that pitch was that we would do these every year as streaming Peacock specials where Larry David and Pete Davidson would have a new spooky adventure in the style of Abbott and Costello. This is feeling to me like one of those specials.
Just an unusually bloody, gory, erotic one.
Yeah,
I don't know that I love Larry David being involved in anything where there's dick outs. I feel like
that's true.
Maybe you stay inside.
Okay,
Larry,
we can keep. I'm
slut shaming him a little bit.
Oh, poor Larry. I'm sure he has a great dick.
Are you sure about that?
No, but
Pete Davidson somewhere, meanwhile, already has his dick out. He knows he knows we're talking about him.
Yeah, that's right. Anytime anyone says his name like more than once in a conversation, it just falls out. That's just his MO.
Yeah. He takes it out somewhere. Or his pants just rip open like Lenny Kravitz. Spontaneously. Okay, so I'm nixing the Larry David, Pete Davidson idea, but this feels of a piece with that,
that's
right?
That's the Jacques Gabor thing. We take one article off. That's the one piece we're removing. So our outfit is now perfect.
Yeah. But I feel like we got to figure out how this whole thing ends, because I've made it very messy, but I have given us a through line.
Yeah. What do we have any sprinkles we want to put on top of this?
There's been so many people have died in the making of this movie. I feel like we could lose a few more. I just don't even know who's left.
Do we want to cast any of the evil exes?
We should cast some evil exes. I feel like Sydney Sweeney belongs in this.
Ooh, yeah, of course. I mean, if we're gonna have boobs, Sydney Sweeney should be.
That's the thing. Is like we're doing a horror thing with boobs that feels like a Sydney Sweeney role.
Yeah, that feels appropriate to me.
Yeah.
Who else is?
Sydney Sweeney could be the pop star.
As Envy?
Okay.
Yeah,
Envy.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe Envy's the one that comes and warns the Ramona.
That
we
makes
haven't
sense.
talked about Envy. Yeah.
So Sydney Sweeney shows up and is like, she's been in hiding. She's like fucking the latest season of Fargo. You know, she's like been deep undercover hiding from Dave Bautista, but she sees in the papers that this is happening again. And she in covert goes to this Ramona person, is like, you have to get away. He thinks he's Scott Pilgrim.
Right. Totally. There's always like the canary in the coal mine situation in these movies. There's always, I feel like, if we really want to turn that on its head, Sydney Sweeney as Envy Adams, but she's also like the creepy old man from Cabin in the Woods, that guy that there always is in the slasher movie who's like, you don't want to go to this place. Like, you don't want to date this guy. He thinks he's Scott Pilgrim and he's a serial killer.
Yeah, she was a pop star. But then she had to go into hiding, and now she runs an old gas station just before, right?
Yeah, she just warns you.
Yeah, in the mountains.
And she kicked him out of the band because he was perhaps murdering people.
Yes, yeah. He did play bass, in the band, yeah. That's how they met.
Yeah, and they at first think, when we see her, we think she's the villain. Like, we think that she is actually the one murdering the exes. But
maybe we don't know that Dave Bautista is crazy yet. And
I feel like I kind of know that just from looking at him a little bit. Not the real guy, but like anytime you see him in a movie, just the sheer size of him, you're a little bit on edge.
Yeah. And the tiny glasses.
You have to. You truly have to give him the tiny glasses.
Yeah. They should keep getting smaller throughout the movie.
Film, yes.
Like the hat in Scary Movie 3 that the cop wears. But that
to signify his craziness.
Yeah.
His mounting craziness.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Dave Bautista is a very committed actor. If we tell him that it's essential that he have his dick out in this film in order to tell the story, that he will do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He'll go method. It's going to be out 100% of the time.
Yes.
Which means, as we're casting the other exes, Amber and Rex, whose dick do you want to see on camera? Who are we casting?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Whose dick do I want to see?
Jason
I don't know
Statham.
Oh, that's true.
He's our Lucas Lee. Our Lucas
Lee,
yeah.
Perfect.
He's such a Lucas Lee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I kind of want to make him do like a Canadian accent just because I'm pretty sure he can't do it.
Yeah.
I feel like I would enjoy. That's just a little treat for Rax,
Yeah.
Chris Evans is
dick do
very
I wanna
funny as
see?
Lucas Lee, by the way. I want to see him do more broad comedy like this because he's very funny in that movie.
He is, yeah.
Okay, so Jason Statham, Lucas Lee gets his dick out, skateboards with his dick out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what? Jeremy Irons.
Okay.
Jeremy Irons feels like maybe our Gideon?
Yeah, he'd have to be our Gideon, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like actors whose dicks I want to see, I feel like there is absolutely no place for Jeremy Irons whatsoever in any corner of the Scott Pilgrim universe, but it's my movie and I want him to be in there with all of his genitals out.
Yeah, it's a bold reimagining, and these aren't even reimaginings of those characters. They're the character's reimagining of that character imprinted onto another person.
Yes.
So we can really do whatever we want.
I'm a dude playing a dude, pretending to be another dude. What we haven't talked about our Ramona. That's a big one.
Ooh.
Who's
Emma Stone could do it. Emma Stone could sell it.
Oh, yeah. Emma Stone could easily do it.
And this is the kind of weirdo shit she's into right now.
Yeah.
That's true. We could probably get her to
absolutely.
produce this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, that does bring me. Who are we getting to direct this
Oh,
monstrosity?
yes. Please choose a director for us.
Because I was just about to suggest Yorgos Lanthimos, but I don't think that's actually a good fit.
I feel like he would be like too cheeky and winky about it. I don't feel like he has the gravitas to direct a dick outs movie with gusto, you know? I don't think he would put his back into it.
Okay.
Who do you think would put
Ari
their back
Aster
into this?
might.
Oh, we do know how much he likes having dicks out.
He
in
he
surreal
is committed to the
situations.
dick out lifestyle
Yes.
in Beau is Afraid, at least.
This does, and this is a tonal. This is a tonal Frankenstein, just like Beau is Afraid. Beau
Obviously, it's going to be about 4 hours long, like Beau is Afraid.
Yeah, because Beau is Afraid was both the scariest comedy and the funniest horror movie I had seen in a while. It kind of does both.
What about Verhoeven?
Ooh, the official director of Low Culture Boil.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, I think if
I think we got it. Yeah.
if we're looking for a
Absolutely.
dicks out pervert to direct this
Yeah.
film,
Right? Like
Broad
he'd be
cultural
totally-
satire, blood, guts, nudity. Perfect. Chef's kiss.
Also,
Satire, yeah.
side benefit of having Paul Verhoeven do it. He's like one of the leading scholars on the life of Jesus Christ, like in the world.
yes, I have
randomly.
to read his book.
I want to read it, and I also feel like that adds a lot to this incredibly normal concept that we've cooked up
Oh
here.
my god!
Christ
Yeah, we could
figure,
have
Scott
Christ
Pilgrim.
figure of Pilgrim,
Big
Scott
time.
Pilgrim Christ figure.
Dave Bautista with like various Halo type situations floating overhead.
Every time he's looking over a dead body, you got like a halo situation behind him, and you're looking up. Yeah. Okay.
That's
yeah.
right.
here's a pitch for you. Maybe how it ends is Dave Bautista has a literal come to Jesus
Come to
moment
Jesus.
in a
Yes.
church, and we think, oh, he has found religion and he has sworn off killing. But what has actually happened is he just thinks he's Jesus now instead of thinking he's Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
end with him being a murderous Jesus and setting up a possible sequel.
Yeah,
Which would be
Passion of the Christ, the remake
Oh my god.
with dicks out.
Yeah. Because
Jesus
Passion-
Christ versus
Passion
the
of
world.
Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the last temptation
Scott
of Christ.
Pilgrim morphs easily into the Passion of the Christ story that we all know and love.
The last temptation of Christ is Dark Universe eligible.
That's true. Universal film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know we have a heart out here, so we got to wrap things up, but I think this is actually a perfect place because I think Verhoeven really ties this whole thing together.
Absolutely.
I think we've taken a lot of disparate ideas, but Verhoeven kind of makes it all feel tangible to me. I can now picture it in my head. So, as for does it fit into our dark universe? It doesn't contradict any lore.
Is there
I
a
think-
monster though?
No,
Oh, sure. I mean,
well,
they don't all
I mean,
have to
Scott
be.
Pilgrim's a monster.
yeah, but they don't all have to be monster
Okay.
movies. But we have talked about on these bonus episodes that by this point, the Dark Universe is so popular that Dylan and I would have easily been given our own production arm to do whatever we want under the Universal umbrella. I feel like maybe this isn't a Dark Universe canon movie, but this is a Dylan and Dalton presents.
We would
Pilgrim.
very proudly present this idea.
Yeah, and get that executive producer money flowing as well. So I think we can greenlight it as maybe the debut project under the Dylan and Dalton banner.
Yeah, I think that also a way to just really boldly step into the world of cinema by saying, yeah, our first movie is also a porn.
Yeah.
That's just
Take that.
that's how the cards fell. That's what we're doing.
Look, you're gonna give
This is us. This is our soul.
you give
It's
the
raw.
two of us $10 million, we're gonna make a high concept porno. And
And
that's
you know what?
a
It's-
promise.
I was about to say, and it's going to be in very good taste, but like, no, we've established that's not going to be a factor here.
Yeah.
This ain't Scott Pilgrim XXX is our very first film.
We're here to pitch a movie that will be talked about on a future season of Low Culture Boil. Speaking of Rax and Amber, thank you for being our guests today on Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe and for pitching us our most fucked up movie to date. What do you two have to promote? Is there anything you want to shout out? Where should our fans follow you if they want more perversions like this in their life?
Oh man. Well, I am on a little bit of a creative hiatus. Honestly, this is my step back into the making content things.
And we are honored
obviously
to
I'm not
have you.
used to
Thank
speaking
you.
on mic anymore. But I just want to promote my baby. She appeared on this a few times, and I apologize for her. She was crying at the idea of all the horror. She was crying at the idea
please
of the
don't make this
swinging
movie.
Absolutely no apology necessary. Made my day. I won't speak for Dalton.
Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Amber C. Rollo. I talk about my baby and and my husband's doctor's appointments. That's pretty much it right now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Follow Amber. She's great. And Rax.
Yeah, I don't have a baby to promote. I'll promote Amber's baby, though. Shit.
Didn't you just finish writing a new book, though? That's kind of like a baby.
It is. It's a baby made entirely out of pages. The least warm, cuddly, cheek-having kind of baby.
I mean, babies
say,
give you little tiny cuts sometimes with their fingernails.
Very,
so
very
it's
sharp
like
nails.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fucked up. Oh, I hate that. Amber and I did used to have a podcast called Low Culture Boil, which our archive is still up. And at some point in the future, we do want to start making new episodes again. It's our little ode to various franchises of trash culture. So definitely listen to our podcast if you want more of this. And also, you can find me in the usual places, Twitter, etc., at Rax King is Dead. And I have a newsletter that I do every week at patreon.com/Rax King is Dead, which you can subscribe to for as little as $1 a month. I don't care. I'll take your dollar. I'm not too proud. And you can read my book, my first one, and then my second one when it comes out. Anytime I promote shit, I just go on and on. I have fingers in every pie.
We can relate.
So,
we can relate.
Yeah.
You've earned the right to promote for as long as you want with the amount of your time that we've taken up with our ramblings.
And Rax's first book is called Tacky, and it's really great, and you should buy it.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, the first book is Tacky. You should read it. It's really good. And also her Patreon, her newsletter is really good. You should definitely check that out too. And $1 a month is too little to pay. So pay her more.
You can't afford not to subscribe to my newsletter.
If you can pay our sorry asses $5 a month, you can pay Rax's sorry ass $5 a month.
And if you're not yet paying our sorry asses $5 a month, you can go to patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton. Join the Dark Legion for $5. Get the Are You Afraid of Dylan and Dalton monthly podcast where we talk about other pop cultural things, usually sci-fi and horror related.
Our most recent episode, we talked about the Hotel Transylvania franchise and The Fly and Dune 2 and Madam Web.
And Lisa Frankenstein.
And the new Dark Universe theme park.
Join our wonderful community of very welcoming and clever creative people on our Discord. It is a really great time. And where we workshop scripts together. We're now starting a thing where we do readings of great screenplays so that we can acclimatize ourselves and learn from the greats. I'm organizing that once a month. We're doing The Matrix.
Oh my gosh. I forgot to say that I think that I realized that Dracula is an allegory for having a baby.
Oh, tell us more.
You got it in under the wire.
Well, that sounds like it could be an entire new podcast for you. But if you want to give us a sample.
Okay.
Is it because a baby sucks on your milk?
Yes.
Like a Dracula gets at your blood parts?
Yes.
Yeah.
A baby feeds off of you by sucking on you, quite literally. Then you have to serve it for a number of years. But then it makes you immortal because you live through it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
when you
there
look
go.
in your baby's eyes, you're hypnotized, you know?
That's right. And they are always awake at night and never during the day.
All right, that sounds like a perfect note on which we can end the show. Rax, Amber, thank you so much for joining us.
And Boris Karloff, wherever you are over there, thank you as well. And your eyebrows.
Well, we don't have Boris, but that's Peanut.
Oh, hi, Peanut.
Hello, Peanut.
Peanut, you rock
He looks
too.
like he's been caught.
Thank you both. And join us here in 2 weeks where we will be finally doing our second musical episode. I will be pitching The Phantom of the Opera, Love Never Dies, an original musical by Dalton DeShane. So join us here. I know everyone's been waiting for that. It is finally happening.
I've heard the demos. It sounds sick as fuck.
You've heard one demo.
I've heard one demo and it sounds sick as fuck.
Because Dylan will be singing in the musical. So we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And until then,
Stay afraid of the dark universe.